Now, let me introduce you to Dr. Brian Edwards. Dr. Edwards trained at Guy's Hospital, London, and spent 14 years in hospital medicine and clinical research before joining the UK regulatory agency, which used to be called the Medicines Control Agency. After 5 years there, he joined a global CRO par excel for 6 years, followed by 18 months at Johnson & Johnson as a deputy qualified person for pharmacovigilance. For the last 13 years, he has been principal consultant in pharmacovigilance at NDA Regulatory Science based in the UK. In addition, he is director of ISOP Secretariat Limited and co-chair of the ISOP Medication Error Special Interest Group, vice president pharmacovigilance and drug safety in the Alliance Clinical Research Excellence and Safety, and chair of the UK Pharmaceutical Human Factors Group. More recently, he has set up his own consultancy, Usoterial Limited. Dr. Brian will present their conference entitled World Patient Safety Day. We invite you to actively participate during his presentation. If you have any questions, please ask them in the chat on the left. We will be responding to as many as we can during the allotted time. The rest of the questions we'll answer and publish in our Q&A section within Patient Safety Day on our webpage, isoponline.org. Without further preamble, please give a warm welcome to Dr. Brian.
Thank you, Melissa. And thank you to the organizers. I hope you can hear me clearly. My name is Dr. Brian Edwards, and I am the chair of the Medication Errors Special Interest Group. My current day job is with NDA Regulatory Science here in the UK, in which I'm a principal consultant. I would like to, first of all, reflect on the activities of the ISOP Medication Errors Special Interest Group, the liaison that we have with organizations such as the British Pharmacological Society with Prescribing Safety Assessment, what our thoughts are moving towards not just collecting medication errors as part of pharmacovigilance, but also how we can mitigate medication errors, and also the unique collaboration that we have with the UK Pharmaceutical Human Factors Sector Group. So the ISOP Medication Error Special Interest Group was established in May 2017 with my colleague and friend, Professor Ian Wong, and it's an opportunity for ISOP members and other like-minded collaborators to network globally in a professional, neutral environment, share evidence solution for tackling medication errors, thereby continuing systematic improvement and optimizing use of medicines in the interest of all stakeholders, healthcare professionals, patients and their families. We have a dedicated project manager. We have a web call every month, and there are agenda and minutes which are freely available to ISOP members. And we have a global team. We have a growing number of members, 60, 70, I lose count, but they represent all continents.
Brian, sorry to interrupt you, but we cannot see your screen. Can you share the presentation, please?
This is it. This is... Can you see it now?
Yeah, perfect.
Can you see that?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we have a global team representatives from all continents except Antarctica. If anyone has any ISOP members down there, then we would very much welcome them. And you can get more information about our group on the ISOP website. So the members of the SIG come from industry, academia, healthcare, anybody who is interested in helping us globally to tackle medication errors. Our goals are as follows. opportunities, researching, investigating medication areas in a friendly, mutually supportive environment. We're all peers, we're all professionals together. Original ideas for supporting healthcare professionals and patients with scientific evaluation medication errors, helping regulatory authorities come up with new advice and guidance for medication errors. ISOP can act as a forum for thinking and discussing any original ideas agencies might have. We very much want to be involved in training and tutorials to support pharmacovigilance centres and other pharmacovigilance professionals in the management of medication errors. We have a social media strategy and other forms of communication. And my thank goes to the team that has arranged this series of presentations to celebrate World Patient Safety Day. That none of this would be possible without the great team that from ISOP that has arranged these events. And of course, we want to input into annual meeting and other ISOP training meetings. And of course, we can act as a forum. Patients can come to our meetings and ask difficult questions, and hopefully we can give them some answers. So if we look more specifically, what have we been involved with? We have a social media activities, and we have you've seen the COVID-19 infographics, which come from ISOP, the infographic strategy. But within our special interest group, we've also been looking at better ways of communicating using social media. We've had a liaison with the British Pharmacological Society of a Prescribing Safety Assessment, which the BPS has been successfully exported to countries such as Canada and Australia, and we are encouraging its take-up in other countries and facilitating conversations. We have a coding and classification group, which is in liaison with MSSO, better use of MEDRA for the use of coding and medication errors. You will hear in a bit about how the liaison with the human factors group will generate new and fresh ideas about how to more effectively use the product labeling to reduce the risk of medication errors. We have local activities, India, Morocco, Middle East, UK, Ireland, Latin America, and my apologies to those who I've left off the slide. What this means is that this gives publicity to activities that are going on in these countries, which others might not be aware of. This gives opportunity for people to present their ideas and have them challenged and constructively criticized, and we enter a scientific debate. We've also encouraged the formation of the ISOP Pharmacogenomics Special Interest Group, which is now an independent special interest group. We are exploring the development of an eco-pharmacovigilance group. And as I say, we have a unique linkages with both the UK Human Factors Group and the Latin America Human Factors Group, which we believe is very important. We look at prescribing safety assessment. This is a very important collaboration. We're very proud to promote this important initiative from the British Pharmacological Society. Here in the UK, this was developed as online training and assessment package to promote better prescribing skills in healthcare. It is used for junior doctors, and it helps score their performance, gives them targeted feedback to improve the way they prescribe. There's a very useful website. I strongly recommend all of you to have a look at this website if you're not aware of it. And I'm sure they will be interested. You've got to contact us if you and your country want to know more about prescribing safety assessment. It is it's validated, robust. We've now got several years of experience, so they can give you a lot of advice about how you may be able to roll this out in your own country. We representatives from the BPS regularly attend our meeting to give us an update, and we arrange introductions to different parts of the world, such as in Saudi Arabia and also where they've been going to UAE, Dubai, and we are facilitating conversations with Morocco. That's just to name but three. But BPS itself has also been very successful in global outreach. So we're facilitating that. Another important group here in the UK I want to bring to your attention we will be hearing more about it within our group, the Safe Anesthesia Liaison Group. I strongly recommend their website to you. Have a look at their patient safety updates. There will be analysis of case studies concerning medication errors and the way they have been investigated using these medicines, which of course can be really dangerous if they are not properly used. They have an ongoing project looking at how to use anesthetics in a more effective way, particularly through syringe labeling, and we will be in liaison with them. We're also promoting the work of the Healthcare Safety Investigation Branch, which was set up in the UK about 18 months ago now, 2 years. And this is again, a world first we're very proud of here in the UK that investigates patient safety incidents. You can sign up for their reports and receive updates. So far, about half of their reports directly concern medication errors, such as injection of an oral medicine intravenously in children. That's a good example of one of their investigations. Strongly recommend you have a look at their website. We're also very proud to have a collaboration and cooperation with the IMSN, International Medication Safety Network, and in particular, we're promoting their consensus statement and position on safer packaging and labeling, and using this as a foundation for our further discussions around labeling. But we're also supporting projects in academia. And here's a good example of an MSc project in the EU2P program, which was looking at adrenaline autoinjectors. The project here was in recognition that there was no agreed process for assessing educational videos for ensuring safe use of these injectors. By means of a questionnaire and a human factors technique called hierarchical task analysis, we've come up with a recommendation for evaluating these videos, and we are in the process of writing this up. But there's also a system model. One of very important medication error is that once a week methotrexate accidentally given once a day, such as in rheumatoid arthritis. In collaboration with systems scientists, we have got a paper which we would very much welcome volunteers to help us finish off, using systems theory to design a process or a system for reducing the risk with methotrexate. Now, if anybody's interested, please do contact me if you want to help me finish right up that paper. One of the big topics that we want to take forward is to use the labeling more effectively, using human factors approaches. And indeed, the idea is to call this a user support program, because the technique can be used in multiple users in the system. The purpose is to ascertain the reality gap between instructions for use provided in regulated information, which describes the ideal, and different circumstances of use for a medicine, which is the reality of use. This enables gaps and areas of misunderstanding to be identified, which can then be addressed by appropriate actions, such as education and communication. We recognize that values and preferences can vary between different stakeholder groups in the system, and such an approach can pick up different values and preferences to recognize that the nuance that is required when communicating important messages in the label. And hopefully this way we will better address barriers to risk minimization and trade-offs during the healthcare delivery of medicines to come up with some new solutions. When we're talking about the labeling, we could talk about all of the labeling, or we can just address specific portions of the labeling. Our priority for us is, of course, risk minimization and medication error. As I say, we can target it to one user group or more broadly to all users involved as part of a program. The essence of the technique is to define a persona of interest, which typically reflects the user group under evaluation. This could be patients, pharmacists, and doctors, and I'll discuss what a persona looks like in a minute. This could be conducted face-to-face, these analyses, or remotely using web-based conferencing. And we will be setting up a group within our special interest group to look at the logistics, the practicality of how this could be implemented. This is the technique we will be using, System Engineering Initiative for Patient Safety, the SEIPS model, which is now well established during healthcare, and we want to investigate its use for minimizing risk of medication errors, whereby it looks at the work system, the different processes, and match that to the outcomes, the reality. And for that purpose, my colleagues within the pharmaceutical hemofactors group, most notably Helen Vosper of the Robert Gordon University of Aberdeen, she's helped develop this worksheet of care system interactions and outcomes, which can be completed during the workshop, which, as I say, could be face-to-face, but at this stage fully recognized more likely to be a web-based communication, whereby there will be a facilitator who can arrange a panel representing different stakeholders who can discuss the persona. And here's the checklist or the worksheet to help the facilitator go through the different person factors, tool and technology, task factors, environment, organizational work, and then match that to the different outcomes. So most notably, as I previously mentioned, HSIB, the Healthcare Safety Investigation Branch, they are also using the SEIPS model for looking at these never events that should never happen, to carry out, so they, as they say, a framework for understanding structures, processes, outcomes. So, and they will be publishing a report in autumn 2020. So this will be very helpful for us because with this HSIB report, this will also help us develop our technique for using this SEIPS framework. I also refer you to this important paper of Systems Mapping Workshop, the role in understanding medication errors, which again will help us set up the process. So this will be a seminal paper on which we will enable us to write some protocol. So as I said, we mentioned the persona. What could a typical persona be for the workshop? Well, here's an example. 78-year-old lady, lives alone, eyesight poor, positive mild impairment, rheumatoid arthritis, high-risk cardiovascular disease. Here are the drugs, methotrexate, low-dose aspirin, calcium antagonist, statin. So I can see now, let's say you want to launch a new biological medicine that affects the immune system, and you want to evaluate the labeling, the regulated information. What is you have your ideal, which is your SPC, which might be information produced by your hospital. How is that information relate to the reality of the use in an elderly rheumatoid arthritis patient? This is what the SEIPS approach would help you define the different entities involved, the different factors, such as human factors and other organizational factors that affect human performance. Start listening to these different values and the preferences, and also find out that there's different sources of information which influence the use of the product and the way users will use the product. And in my opinion, we believe this is real world evidence, which, as you know, is a very popular topic at the moment. So, but this will be another important source of real world evidence. So through our medications error special interest group, we have created opportunities for researchers and professionals to share their work and publicize it. We provide a neutral and impartial forum for all stakeholders, including patients. We have patient representatives such as Helen Haskell, who you will hear later, because we are all in this together. We're all peers. Doesn't matter how early or how soon or what stage you are in your pharmacovigilance career. It does what we require is enthusiasm and a commitment and a curiosity to tackle medication errors. We are promoting Prescribing Safety Assessment, that important British Pharmacological Society initiative. It's an effective way for supporting prescribers and looking and supporting the BPS in the way they're exporting the program to other countries. My thanks to Katerina Kralova of Sanofi Aventis for leading the case coding group, and thank you to MSSO for the collaboration. And also we're investigating new approaches applying human factors, such as the user support program. In this way, regulators will hear of new techniques, new approaches, and we hope that this then can be adopted. We're very interested in being involved in all forms of training program. We're also interested to hear from volunteers that want to set up webinars or training. And we had a training session in last year's annual meeting, which was very successful. Our Middle East chapter has arranged a medication error course, and we will continue to actively do this as a central part of ISOP strategy. We have an active and thriving social media strategy, as evidenced by these successful events over the next 2 days. But none of this is possible without the enthusiastic and energetic support of international SIG members across the world and the project management support. Particular thanks goes to Jim Carlson. I cannot thank them enough. Without your support and the active activities of the ISOP SIG members, of course, none of this would be possible. I am pleased to say that we will be putting a new project or leadership team in place very soon, and Jim is stepping down. As I say, my thanks to him. We'll be having new project managers, and this way the SIG will continue leading the way globally in managing medication errors. So as my friend and colleague Mira Harrison-Woolridge, as president of ISOP, says, come and join us in ISOP if you really want to be intellectually stimulated, if you want to grapple some of the hardest problems that we have in public health concerning medication errors. ISOP is the place to be. So finally, thank you to the organizers for inviting me to speak, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Dr. Brian, thank you for this great presentation and the work you have done. We have some questions from our attendees. So our first question that I see has 2 parts is, one of the most important things to minimize medication errors is the joint work of all the stakeholders. However, from the pharmaceutical industry, there may be some resistance as some changes or strategies will require an economic investment that not everyone is willing to make, mainly small companies. From your experience, how this approach has been made with these industries and what strategies could be made to start implementing activities to minimize medication errors, for example, for genetics companies?
Thank you for that question. Yes, this is part of the problem here, is the lack of a joined up systems approach to medication errors, which is something we're looking at the UK Human Factors Group. How procurement within the health service recognize improvement, for instance, the design of products which reduce medication errors. Also, we have my colleague in India, Jerin Yose. He's also been looking at the pharmacoeconomics of medication errors. particularly with respect to healthcare institutions, to demonstrate that there are real savings to be had by active interventions to reduce errors. Thirdly, as part of the SIG, because ISOP is open to everybody, you don't have to be pharmacovigilance professional as such, you have to be committed to the values and principles of safe use of medicines. We are very interested in having conversations around these values and different attitudes that need to be addressed. These, which are, if you like, barriers to implementation of successful medication error interventions. So these is all a part of the communication strategy, and that's both social media, but there's also active approaches. And we are closely liaising with the risk communication special interest group led by my friend and colleague Priya Bari, which will play an important role with this.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Brian. We have another question. It says, hello, Dr. Brian. We do not see many training or discussion for coding medication errors and MEDRA codes available at their appropriate use. Thank
you. I think you'll have to repeat the question. Sorry.
Okay, sure. We do not see many training or discussion for coding medication errors and MEDRA codes available and their appropriate use. I think it's more than a comment than a question, I think.
Yes, we recognize that, and we are in discussion with MSSO at the, as you are aware, Melissa, as one of the main organizers of the annual meeting. We had a training session on this at the annual meeting, and we certainly are interested if there is a need. This is something we're happy to discuss with MSSO. We have communications both with MHRA and US FDA and on this topic of the coding. So this is something, question we again can pass to Katerina Kravlova, who's leading that group, whether this could be a suitable topic for a further ISOP webinar.
Okay. Our third question says, great presentation. What strategies can be used for have more and best medication error reports?
First of all, you have to facilitate reporting in the first place. This therefore requires discussion with our colleagues in healthcare as to where those medication errors might be, what sort of information are we interested in. I think a targeted approach may well be warranted, thinking about those parts of the system where we're not getting information or where we think there could be a lot of problems. And one area, for instance, is in the area of prisons. And I mean, they are the forgotten part of society. And yet it is quite likely there will be a lot of medication errors amongst those who are incarcerated in prisons. What are people doing about that? Or people that are the people who don't have access to healthcare, so the poor and the vulnerable. So these are those parts of society we should be thinking, how can we get hold of information and how can we facilitate that? I mean, they may well not have access to the normal digital tools which are in development. So we're always interested in new ideas for actively obtaining information. And another very good example is the ProPharma program in Africa with concerning new HIV products, whereby collection of information is fully integrated in the healthcare visit. So I think we should be thinking about this in pharmacovigilance in general, that there needs to be sometimes a more targeted, active approach for collection of information, rather than just waiting for reporting. So but finally, and we have a lot of information now about medication errors, but the challenge now is what are we going to do with that information? So that's why I strongly believe we should really strengthen our efforts now around using human factors approaches at reducing their risk.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brian. Our fourth and last question, I think, is, within the medication errors, we find the lack or inadequate information available related to the use of medicines to make appropriate decisions, mainly in terms of self-medication. From medication errors, a special interest group, which projects are designed to minimize this?
Well, this is the purpose of the user support program that I've just mentioned, that that what happens, you will have your SPC or package insert produced by the regulatory authority in agreement with the regulatory agency, but then you might also have a hospital produce their own guidance for use of a medication or medications. But of course, you may have different hospitals across the system produce different information sheets. And certainly this is happening in the UK, and I expect it's happening in many parts of the world. And of course, this is all regulated information because it's being produced by the system for the end users to use. But how does that information relate to the real use of the product? What are we missing? What are the gaps? How does that match reality of use of the product? And this is what we hope a user support program will help us better understand, to come up with some practical suggestions for interventions to reduce the risk of medication error. And this is a great opportunity for patient involvement, because when you heard that persona that I discussed, patients can propose different personas that we can use for the workshop, the workshop can have different stakeholders in, not just patients, but representatives across the system, from pharma company to regulator to healthcare manager, to understand better what needs to be done to ensure to optimize the use of the product.
Okay, I think we have time for one last question. They're asking about identification of medication errors in polypharmacy.
In other words, because it's difficult to pin it down to one particular product. And I think it's a good point, because you can't conventionally report a case based on one medicine. I guess that is a barrier to reporting a problem anyway. So I think again, and I go back to this concept of the user support program to better understand that, for instance, in the elderly, that they are a particular at-risk group of polypharmacy, you should be able to predict the different ways, for instance, that inadvertent drug interactions might occur, or that the medicines may not be properly taken. I also that there may also be the need for other techniques such as surveys to pick up particularly high risk situations concerning polypharmacy, and that's why I'm particularly interested in the work of HSIB Israel that looked at anticoagulants, which is a real, as you know, anticoagulants are still the biggest cause of harm, even though they are incredibly important medicines. But of course, they are also prone to medication errors. So I think a real systems approach is needed, and that's why I'm very interested in volunteers to help us work on that methotrexate case study as a real classic example of a systems approach to this product, because drugs such as methotrexate once a week, not used in isolation, it's often used in a polypharmacy situation. So I think we need to better think of system design and work with systems engineers, human factors, to design better systems, which should be our aim in pharmacovigilance.
Thank you so much for your answers and for our attendees and the comments received. The rest of the questions will be addressed at the webpage in our Q&A section. Thank you so much again, Dr. Bryan, for your interesting presentation.
Thank you very much, Melissa, and thank you to the organizers. Have a good day, everybody, and I wish you a successful meeting, and please, everybody, do attend as many of the events as possible. Thank you.